Hi, good afternoon. Thanks a lot for having me. Pleasure to be here. We have one big objective in European climate policies, and this is to make Europe climate neutral by 2050. So this means, on balance, we shouldn't add any more CO2 to the atmosphere in 2050. For this, in the first place, we need to reduce our emissions. We need to reduce the use of fossil carbon. But we also need to get better in getting the CO2 out of the atmosphere and storing it in our forests, in our soils, in the products that we produce out of it, like in wood, wooden buildings, and so on. And to unlock this climate neutrality, to reduce emissions, increase removals, there are three keys. The first one is we need renewable energy. And there we are on a very good way. We've never seen so big investments like in solar, in wind energy. So in 2040, 2050, 80 to 90% of our energy will be renewable. The second one is we still need carbon, but we just can't use any more fossil carbon in the industry, but more sustainable one. So biogenic carbon or carbon that we get directly out of the atmosphere. Because we need that carbon in our chemical industry for construction. And we need to use that carbon in a very sustainable way. Keep it longer, like again in wooden buildings, using very sustainable bioplastics. So the demands for our land sector will just increase. In 2040, 2050, in a climate neutral economy, we need so much more from our land. It's the food, it's the feed, but it's energy, the bioenergy, but it's also the feedstock for the industry. So what we need in 2040, 2050 is a very healthy, resilient and sustainable land. And we need the farmers like Sandra, who want to work on it and who have the capabilities to work on it. And this is what we need to look into now. And it's a big challenge because the farming sector, the forestry sector, is the first one to be hit by climate change. So we need to have a new deal for farmers, but also for the agri-food supply chain. We need to involve the whole supply chain. It's not only just always telling the farmer you need to do this, and this. It's for the whole supply chain to become more sustainable. Otherwise, we will not manage to become climate neutral. So, and what we are kind of looking into is whether creating a market for all these ecosystem services, like removals, like emission reductions, like more biodiversity, could be a good solution. We have experience from other sectors. We've done emission trading system for industry, for energy, and they've worked pretty well. So could that also be a solution for the agri-food supply chain? This is what we are currently looking into. And the first thing we always do from climate policy is monitoring, reporting, verification. You first need to know what is a ton of emission reduction, what is a ton of additional CO2 stored in our soils, in our forests. And of course, this monitoring, reporting, verification must be completely user-friendly, as Sandra has talked about that. We really need to tap into all the potential that we have with remote sensing, with AI, and so on. And then we can also switch not in looking into practices, but results. How much more carbon is stored? How many emissions are reduced through a better management of the nitrogen cycle? And then you can create financial incentives based on that. So you would see a market on which farmers not only sell food, feed, or bioenergy, but also nature services, so emission reductions, carbon removals. And that would be done on a single system of monitoring, reporting, verification, a single monitoring system, a single database, a single registry that we are currently setting up with our certification framework for carbon farming and carbon removals. And then it could be all the food processors that have all the commitments in becoming climate neutral, in wanting to offer a more sustainable product to their consumers, who can fulfill these obligations, this reduction of the scope 3 emissions that everyone is interested in achieving, with buying up those certificates, those credits from the farmers. So, and you would have one market for that, a very transparent one that would serve everyone and make the whole game much clearer, much simpler. And it would give certainty. Sandra has talked a lot about investments, and we totally see this. And it's investments at the farmer level, but also at the processor level. There may be new value chains, new products coming up. And I think this is why it's important to set a clear target on where we want to go until 2040, 2050. And it's very clear, and we very much understand that we cannot reduce emissions to zero. We will always have livestock. We will always need to use fertilizer. That's very clear. So in our impact assessment for climate neutrality, we talk about a reduction of emissions maybe of around 30% until 2040. But that we can be very, very clear. And then all farmers would get additional income options. It's not only more the food, it's only the valuation for what do I invest in nature, what do I invest in my soils, in my forests, how do I produce my dairy products with less emissions. So, and then I think what is important for farmers to see is, of course, you have the possibility of food, you will have a higher demand for feedstock, it's still for feed, and then also for these nature services. So you can diversify your income. You're not anymore so reliant on a single purchaser. And you become, I think, again, much more an entrepreneur, as you've always wanted it to be as a farmer. And this is something we are very interested to discuss with you, to dig further in that. We had last week a kickoff of our new study where we want to look into this. We are very happy that we have such a big interest on that. We'll have a follow-up of workshops over the next months. So very much looking forward to further discussion. And yeah, of course, it all depends on what is then, of course, the political guidance that will be coming. Thanks a lot.